Alrighty, hello everyone, it's Silver Kyle, and this Halloween season I've decided to rewatch the entire Scream franchise and review them one by one. These are all directed by Wes Craven, and this, in my opinion, is his best series. The first one stars David Arquette, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, Drew Barrymore, Skeet Ulrich, I'm not sure, Jamie Kennedy, Matt Lillard. Like there's a lot of people in this first movie, and basically, it's just a killer going around wearing the Scream mask, which is not actually on the cover. Going around, basically, he's wearing a death suit, basically, that anybody can buy and pick up, and going around killing a bunch of high schoolers. And what I liked about this series, and what this series has done, basically, is in the 90s, it just remade the slasher genre popular again. Like, basically, at that point, all we were getting was, like, really bad sequels from the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, the Friday the 13th movies, basically all these, the Halloween series, all these, really big franchises were just doing really bad sequels. So this one was fresh, it was new because it made fun of all the horror genres, the horror rules. It told about them, it spoke about them openly, and basically said if you want to survive a horror movie, this is how you got to do it. But what's also so good about the Scream franchise is it takes these things and then just goes completely out the door, throws all the rules later on in the series, it just throws them out the doors. And it's just really cool how they're constantly talking about these rules and like, okay, well, since if this was a sequel, this is how we would have to survive and this is how it would go. Another thing too is that you never know who the killer is. Each movie, everybody is a suspect and anybody can die. I like that even the main cast always feels like they could potentially die or even be one of the killers themselves. I really like that, especially in this first movie. If the first time you're ever watching this, you have no idea who to trust and who to believe because they show you slowly that it could be anybody. The timing is excellent in every scene. Really good job on that. The acting is pretty good too. I really like this cast. I always thought that they did a really good job picking everyone. And I also find that this is just such a 90s movie. The clothes, what they're talking about, it just screams 90s. And I grew up in the 90s, so it's just awesome to me. It just reminds me of going in high school back then. Now, another thing that I love about the Scream franchise is because that it is by Wes Craven. He takes a few shots at his own series, Nightmare on Elm Street. At the beginning, they're talking about horror movies, and they talk about Friday the 13th, they talk about Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's funny because he created it, and one of the characters says, one of my favorite movies is the Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, because all the other sequels sucked. And it's funny because Wes Craven still made those sequels. He's the one responsible for them. I like that. I like that there's a janitor at one point that looks exactly like he's wearing the Freddy clothes. There's also little nods. Every time that I rewatch this movie, there's something else that I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. Jamie Kennedy is watching the Halloween movie, and he sees Jamie Lee Curtis's character, and instead of referring to her by name, like her character's name, he says, Jamie, just turn around, just look behind you, the killer's there. And in the actual Scream movie that you're watching, Jamie Kennedy on the couch, his character, this killer is behind him, and he's saying, Jamie, just turn around. Just little things like that every once in a while. I love this. I love the twists. I love that everybody can be a suspect, anybody can die. I love that the humor is pretty good. It's making fun of the horror genre, and the little nods here and there. So out of all that, I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. Now, that's not a huge rating, but I really never rate horror movies very high. I can rewatch them. I can even rewatch the really bad sequels because they're rewatchable, but I normally don't give them high ratings. So a 7 out of 10 is pretty high, and I definitely recommend watching this one. Not a really big scares, but a fun, enjoyable movie. More so for the humor and how they talk about the horror genre so frequently. If you're a horror fan, you're gonna have fun just listening to what they're talking about. So thank you all for watching. You've been bearded in.
Beardage.